Something that came as a surprise to myself and maybe you is that Final Fantasy XVI faced a boycott. Yeah, we had multiple gaming websites such as Eurogamer running with articles such as this. If you didn't know or hadn't heard about any of this, it's in regards to comments coming from the game's producer on the lack of diversity, saying that, well, yeah, they're going with an authentic medieval setting, and apparently that's a controversial statement to say in 2023, at least according to a couple of dozen people on the Extremism Reset era gaming forums. Why this got so much attention from gaming press? No idea, but it doesn't seem like it at all factored into the game's sales, as it looks like it's doing a-okay. Final Fantasy XVI reaches 3 million physical shipments and digital copies sold. That was in the first week or so. Since then, it does seem like physical sales are down, but that's just an industry-wide thing nowadays. We're living in the digital age, and this is becoming an issue with game preservation. Almost 90% of classic games are critically endangered. This according to the co-director of the Video Game History Foundation. And the one thing that this industry loves to do, and they will continue to do, is delisting games, attacking communities with DMCA claims, and, reselling these games years later for $60-$70. That's not going to stop, and the ESA, this whole industry will defend that practice, which is honestly horrible with the amount of games that we won't have access to in the future. Black Noir, Starlight, and Homelander all coming to Call of Duty. The Fortnite effect of this industry has been wild. All of these multiplayer live services have to have big, grand, random partnerships of sorts, and this is another example of it. Fable 4, this is a game that has come under a lot of fire, especially in regards to its character models, one of them being called Very Ugly, facing a lot of controversy and a lot of people questioning the direction with this game. Well, it does look like there has been a major shakeup behind the scenes because Fable 4's narrative lead has announced that they are departing from the studio. They were promoted to this position just about a year ago, and they're leaving mid-development. This developer, Anna McGill, took to Twitter saying that she's just found a great point to leave the project, and she found a better opportunity, I suppose. But I've heard this so many times over the years with so many other dreaded projects, but we'll see what happens. But I definitely have concerns with this game. Now, Respawn Entertainment released what I consider one of the best single-player experiences this year with Star Wars Jedi Survivor, which unfortunately was plagued with a lot of technical issues. But it does look like they are finally getting ready to work on the third of this series, and I'm honestly excited. Cal Kestis is one of my favorite video game protagonists of the last couple of years, and I really do think that if they hit a home run once again with this third game, this could be the best Star Wars trilogy, video game trilogy, maybe ever. We don't have many trilogies. The KOTOR series had KOTOR 1, KOTOR 2. Battlefront can never get Battlefront 3 for some reason. And genuinely, I am looking forward to more Respawn Star Wars games. Post-Cyberpunk 2077, CD Projekt Red faced a lot of problems, but somehow they are still technically worth and bigger than Ubisoft, a company that has like 15,000 employees and has pretty much just become Assassin's Creed. That's the only thing that is worth of value with them nowadays. And speaking of Assassin's Creed, there has been some rumors and some leaks that have emerged about the next AC game coming in 2024. That is the Feudal Japan title that doesn't have a name, it's just a code name, Assassin's Creed Red. And we have found out that, again, it will be coming next year, but we also recently found out some information in regards to its protagonist, because yes, it will apparently have dual protagonists, this coming reportedly from Insider Gaming. And they said that the game would be featuring a samurai and shinobi character. More specifically, there would be a female samurai, and the other character, the shinobi, is understood to be an African refugee who learned the way of the Creed. Definitely interesting. I don't necessarily think Ubisoft will do this any bit of justice, just because I feel like the narrative front, the last couple of years with all of their games, it's been a mess. But online, a lot of people had opinions about this, some being very, very upset about this direction, wanting something more authentic. But in my opinion, we already kind of got that from Sucker Punch Productions with Ghost of Tsushima, and personally myself, I'm looking forward to Ghost of Tsushima 2 more than whatever this project will end up being, and I think we all can guess that there's going to be a bunch of mythological and all kinds of crazy stuff that we just come to expect with Assassin's Creed games the last couple of years. Now, another franchise that has been struggling is Halo Infinite, and recently 343 scrapped plans for seasonal cutscenes. It just seems wild how far they're having to, scale things down with this, but it just indicates that Halo Infinite, the long-term vision, the 10-year project that this was supposed to be, it's never going to be that. And actually, the player count for this game has continued to struggle. It's now lost about 98% of its players on Steam. It's still hanging in around the 20 to 30 mark on the most played Xbox games. So it definitely still has players, but it's nowhere where it should be, you know, as this was a flagship franchise. But definitely seems like we'll probably hear more about the future of Halo sometime recently, but I just don't think it's going to be Halo Infinite. Now, one of the most exciting projects, at least for myself, because this was a huge part of this channel for a very long time, Red Dead Redemption Remastered seems to be on the way. It was rated in Korea recently, and then we had some more information that came from Colin Moriarty of Last Stand Media. He said recently on a podcast that I have seen confirmation that this is real. I had someone reach out to me behind the scenes that showed me something that definitely shows this game is coming. Maybe even imminently with an announcement maybe in August. So yes, there is another title coming before Grand Theft Auto 6. This was believed to, you know, have been halted because of Grand Theft Auto 6, but that does not appear to be the case. How drastically different this will be, you know, I don't think this is going to be a GTA Trilogy Definitive Edition, you know, mess, because of the fact that this seems to be an internal project at Rockstar Games and not something thrown off to a different studio like that was with the GTA Trilogy. But, you know, seeing this game modernized, seeing it running on PC, I think that's something a lot of people want to see, and also updated visuals, updated gameplay with that Red Dead Redemption 2 effects. I'd honestly love to see it. And hopefully we do see an announcement in the next couple of weeks. But on the Rockstar Games front and in regards to GTA 6, there has been some updates because the notable hacker that struck Rockstar Games last year, he has been brought to court, and there's been some interesting developments on that front. And if you are not aware of what I'm discussing, last year GTA 6 gameplay leaked about 90 videos in development from the alpha version. It was devastating for Rockstar Games, and this hacker threatened to release a lot more, but they were outed by other hackers. Other hackers actually called them sloppy, and they ended up being found as a hacker that had a notable history. They had actually already been arrested for previous hacks of Samsung and some other companies, and they weren't even supposed to have internet access, but yeah, I guess the UK authorities were slacking like they usually are. But yes, this teen, according to Reuters, recently was in court along with another member of the Lapsus hacking group, and they have been recently outed as hackers of Uber and fintech firm Revolt, and then they also blackmailed, obviously, Rockstar Games last year, according to prosecutors in London court. Arian Kurtaj, 18, is said to have targeted Revolut and Uber in September 22, accessing around 5,000 customers' information and causing nearly $3 million of damage to Uber. Prosecutors allege he hacked Rockstar Games days later and threatened to release the planned GTA 6 source code in a Slack message sent to all of Rockstar's staff. He is also accused, alongside a 17-year-old who cannot be named, of blackmailing Britain's biggest broadband provider BT Group and mobile operator EE between July and November 2021, demanding a $4 million ransom. So yeah, this kid was just going around, along with his other group members. They were hacking everybody. The pair, who prosecutors say were key players in Lapsus, are alleged to have hacked chipmaker Nvidia Corp in February 2022 and demanded payment not to publish its data. Prosecutor Kevin Berry told jurors at London Southwark Crown Court last week that the 17-year-old hacked City of London Police's cloud storage weeks after the force arrested him in connection with the attack on BT and EE. Kurtaj has been assessed by psychiatrists as not fit to stand trial. So the jury will determine whether he committed the acts alleged rather than deliver a guilty or not guilty verdict. So unclear if he'll ever face any prison time, but it doesn't seem likely. He has been charged with 12 offenses, including 3 counts of blackmail, 2 counts of fraud, and 6 charges under the Computer Misuse Act. He was previously pleaded guilty to 2 offenses under the Computer Misuse Act and 1 count of fraud. And again, this kid has had a long history with the law, but it doesn't seem like punishments have worked. There have been reports saying that he suffers from autism, and that's actually something that other hackers have called out about him. And they've also said that the real hackers, the real ones that are causing damage, are out in Brazil, and they've used him kind of as just a face for them. But either way, it does seem like this GTA 6 hacking story is finally coming to a close. It's unclear how Rockstar Games has played a role, but it seems like this kid has had just an enormous record of different companies that he's gone after, and somehow he got away with it for it feels like a couple of years. Next though, one of the big surprises of this summer has been Star Wars Outlaws. Being developed by Massive Entertainment, the devs behind The Division, this is a single player open world game, something that I think a lot of people thought we were going to be getting about a decade ago with Star Wars 1313, but yes, an open world Star Wars game like this is something that many of us have dreamed about. And that's why it took a lot of people by surprise with the trailer and then gameplay. Although, while I did find the gameplay rather interesting, I don't know if I would say it was impressive just because of how scripted it was. I always get concerned with stuff like that, but the overall takeaway online is that this is an exciting project, but there has been some people kind of disappointed with the fact that there's going to be a female lead protagonist, a set protagonist. You don't get an option like you have with so many other Ubisoft experiences. You will be playing as Kay Vess, who is like a female Han Solo, basically. Now, we did see a bunch of tweets saying that, yeah, I'm pretty disappointed by that, but yeah, there's a narrative already from games media in which it's that ism that they like to throw around. We have this article from GG Recon. Is are already slamming Star Wars Outlaws, and you want to know what they mean by slamming? Well, you can go down to one tweet which they have highlighted: no lightsabers and no male protagonists, no thanks. I don't know how that is that type of ism, but I guess that's the narrative we're going to craft, which is rather interesting because many of you remember, if you follow this channel, highly recommend you subscribing, but Jedi Fallen Order, when that was announced, there was uproar over Cal Kestis. We had certain game developers, certain people online outraged that they were going to have to play as a white male lead who they called generic before they even saw any gameplay with him. Now, it's interesting that those individuals don't have certain words thrown about them, but with this, it's a problem. I don't know. But we had other articles such as this one from Kotaku: Star Wars Outlaws Backlash proves we need more women protagonists, which the last couple of years I feel like we've seen more of them than ever. Quite a few of them. And if you go down, after Star Wars Outlaws was revealed during Ubisoft Showcase, some GG-adjacent gamers took issue with its protagonist, a woman of color, blah 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 blah. Some begged Ubisoft to let them switch to a male character as they waited years for an open-world Star Wars game and couldn't bear the thought of navigating through it as a woman. Others lamented the lack of lightsabers, and men said no thanks to the concept of anything else. And then they craft a narrative saying that there's been so many single-player Star Wars games with a white male lead or a male lead in general, but that just isn't the case. We had Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order and Star Wars Jedi Survivor with Cal Kestis, and then you have to go back a decade in which we had Starkiller and the Force Unleashed games, and then that's kind of about it. You had choices with other games, and then if you want to count the movie tie-in games, go ahead, but let's just be honest, those are horrible experiences, most of them. The actual single-player Star Wars games made by real developers and aren't trying to do movie tie-in stuff, we've had a couple of them over the years. And other than Cal Kestis in recent years, we had Iden Versio and Star Wars Battlefront 2. That wasn't very good, but yes, we've had two female leads. Well, we're going to have two female leads in the last decade or so, and we'll have one male lead with Cal Kestis. So it's not like there's a huge disparity, at least with Star Wars, in terms of gaming. Now, we also saw another article, this one coming from Game Rant: Fable's protagonist controversy is Horizon Forbidden West all over again, and we've talked about the Fable nonsense, we'll just move past that, but they did mention this in the article. A viral post, for example, responded to the fact that Star Wars Outlaws features a female lead by asking what happened to the men in the universe, as if there hasn't been a plethora of male Star Wars protagonists. It almost seems like a mandate to surviving Order 66s to be a white dude. But no, men are dead in Star Wars, because one game features something a little different. And again, I'm not seeing any of these tweets with absolute anger and uproar. The only thing I've seen is some disappointment and some people just saying, yeah, I'm gonna pass on this because I prefer playing as a male lead. I don't know, games media loves to create narratives, and this is, I think, just a clear example of another instance.
I do have some breaking news to get to. I think Steve Kovac has that for us. Steve?
Sarah, yeah, Microsoft has actually won the case against the FTC. This was for the FTC was seeking that.
A historic day for the video game industry, something that has been a long way coming. You know, we've been waiting for this ruling for the last 2 years. I think a lot of us are ultimately kind of exhausted by this case. It's been the constant back and forth between Sony and Xbox. Regulators have been talking about this case, investigating all around the world, the fanboyism online. It all adds up to kind of a nightmare with this situation in which many of us have just wanted it to be over with, and that's exactly what we have now. Microsoft has won their case in U.S. courts against the FTC. It looks like they are on the way to getting this deal finalized in the coming days. The only other regulator that was opposing this deal was the UK CMA, and they almost immediately folded when this announcement was made. We actually have some statements that have been made about this deal. We go to this Yahoo Finance article, Microsoft cleared to buy Activision in US as UK pauses fight. And here we have Microsoft won a major boost for its $69 billion bid for Activision. You can see Activision stocks up about 10% because, yeah, imagine those who actually got in on this and really stuck with it. They probably made a good payday. They secured a green light from a U.S. judge, which prompted UK regulators to pause their litigation over the largest gaming deal ever. The UK Competition and Markets Authority, which had vetoed the deal in May, which a lot of us assumed was kind of like, that's it, the deal is done, but no, Microsoft pushed forward and they got kind of lucky with these rulings. It was prepared to evaluate proposals from Microsoft and has agreed to stay in the company's appeal before the Competition Appeal Tribunal, because this, yes, again, Microsoft was already appealing that ruling in the UK, but now it seems like that's it, it's over. The UK is coming back to the table. We actually have an update, Tom Warren, saying that Microsoft and the CMA have agreed on a small divestiture to address the regulators' concerns, because yes, once the FTC lost the case, the UK realized they're not going to be able to hold the line, and they're going to have to come back to the table, and that's exactly what's already happened, and some sort of deal has been reached, and like Tom Warren says, he's a reporter from The Verge, this was definitely related to cloud gaming. Now, if you did follow the case, the FTC just did not put forward a very strong case. They really relied heavily on Call of Duty, and the problem with that is Call of Duty is not something that anybody around the world was really concerned by. It was all about cloud gaming, and the FTC really didn't stick enough on that subject and show what the damage could be with them having Call of Duty and all of this new IP in studios. And now the FTC lost. They could be, appealing the ruling. We'll see what happens. But yeah, Microsoft could have gotten past this deal without the UK. There was some loopholes and stuff, but it would have been a major headache. But now looks like they're not even going to have to deal with that. The FTC did respond to this ruling, said it was disappointed in the outcome. It would be announcing our next steps to continue our fight to preserve competition and protect consumers. And the problem with the FTC's argument, again, was heavily because they were talking from Sony's perspective. If you listen into this, it sounded like a lot of people that didn't know enough about the video game industry, which is kind of troubling for the people that are supposed to be, overseeing all of this. But Corley, the judge who was overseeing this case, said that the FTC has not shown it is likely to succeed on its assertion the combined firm will probably pull Call of Duty from Sony PlayStation, or that its ownership of Activision content will substantially lessen competition in the video game library subscription and cloud gaming markets. And there's much more here. Some of it really just goes against the narrative that the FTC had, and it's really hard to see that another court's going to be able to overrule what she said here. And Stephen Totiello, he is a reporter for Axios, saying, the gist is that the FTC failed to convince the judge that Microsoft Activision was likely to pull Call of Duty or substantially lessen competition in cloud and Game Pass. Now, as Stephen points out here, this is probably by far the most notable remark in the judge's ruling, and it actually involves Sony. Sony opposes the merger. Its opposition is understandable. Before the merger, Sony paid Activision for exclusive marketing rights that allowed Sony to market Call of Duty on PlayStation, but restricted Xbox's ability to do the same. There was also some exclusive content here and there, but whatever. After the merger, the combined firm presumably will not agree to such restrictions. Before the merger, a consumer wanting to play Call of Duty console game had to buy a PlayStation or an Xbox, or played on PC, but again, whatever. After the merger, consumers can utilize the cloud to play on the device of choice, including it is intended on the Nintendo Switch. Perhaps bad for Sony, but good for Call of Duty gamers and future gamers. And again, look, if you're upset with this ruling, just understand the FTC did not know what they were talking about here. They really did not put forward a very cohesive defense or an argument against this deal. It should be mentioned that during closing arguments, they were specifically called out by the judge for looking out for Sony's interests rather than consumers. So the FTC, it really did seem like this was more political, why they were so against this deal, and also just largely that they wanted to go against any big deals, something that seems to be a focus now under the Biden administration, but doesn't seem like it's going very successfully for them. There are some other notable remarks here. We have one in which the FTC's economist witness, economist. Anyway, Dr. Robin Lee did not perform any quantitative analysis on how, if COD Game Pass exclusivity would harm competition. Judge Corley had nothing to go off of. Something important if you're going to be saying that, Call of Duty is going to be damaging if it's only owned by Microsoft, even though they've obviously already committed for the next 10 or so years, it's going to be on PlayStation. Kodak's testimony underlined that Activision was unlikely to support subscriptions until the financial incentives were great enough. And as the judge writes, the merger has the pro-competitive effect of expanding access to Call of Duty. So yeah, she views Game Pass as a good thing. And she even said during the trial that Sony, they got to up it up. They got to do better. They need to have something like Game Pass. This Xbox forces them to be more competitive in that regard. And I actually do think that's a good thing, even though I don't honestly feel great about the consolidation of this industry, which I think a lot of people don't understand. While I did think Xbox was going to win this ultimately towards the end, I never was fully in support of this because I would love all these companies staying independent, but I just realized that in the next 10 to 20 years, we're going to see Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Facebook, and all these companies swoon on in, and EA will be owned by somebody, Take-Two Interactive, Ubisoft, CD Projekt, and so on and so forth until it's just a couple of companies owning everything. It's just the nature of how everything's going, the nature of this industry, and where it's headed, unfortunately. Now, there is some more. Judge Corley brings up a good point. The question is not whether Microsoft following the merger is more likely to engage in foreclosure than an independent Activision, rather whether the proposed merger is likely to substantially lessen competition, and the FTC did not prove that. And it continues saying, page 45 addresses Jim Ryan's claims that Sony won't share PS6 dev kits with Microsoft post-merger. The judge writing, protecting Sony's decision to delay collaboration with Microsoft and therefore PlayStation users' access to Microsoft's content is not pro-competitive. So again, that wasn't an argument that really could go against Microsoft. It just points to Sony. They're going to be hurting themselves. And the next remark here, Judge Corley says that Microsoft's previous decisions with ZeniMax are not dispositive of the incentive question, but ultimately Microsoft provided strong evidence that it does not have incentive to withhold Call of Duty from PlayStation. So that is ultimately the case. And as of recording this video, the FTC did in fact appeal their loss, and well, they lost again. The Court of Appeals denying their request, and the head of the FTC, Lina Khan, was in front of Congress just the other day, and she was grilled for hours by lawmakers, with many of them not understanding the FTC's reasoning for their opposition to the Activision Blizzard Microsoft deal, and many just wondering why so much taxpayer money is being spent on this.
Are you bringing cases that you expect to lose?
Absolutely not.
Okay, well, your track record seems to suggest otherwise.
That merger that you lost the other day is one in which a protected market that Sony enjoys in Japan, a company that is already larger, needs competition. The reality is we are a global market, and you are thinking only of who you want to go after for some reason. And I cannot find your logic, and I believe that it begins at the top. When you blamed your staff and said staff decisions, shame on you.
Anyway, we are in fact here at the end game. Microsoft has pretty much won Activision Blizzard. The only hurdle left in the way was the UK CMA, and it does look like Microsoft has made some sort of deal or compromise with them. There's some reports and leaks indicating that Microsoft is going to be selling some of its UK cloud gaming rights to appease them. So yeah, it does look like this situation is finally coming to a close, and we can now move on. It does look like Microsoft in the next coming days will have 17,000 more developers. How they will manage over all of this, all of the new studios, Treyarch, Infinity Ward, all of Blizzard, all of King, the mobile part, which seems to be the main reason why they even went after this. They actually even had emails which apparently in the past they were actually going to be going after Zynga, but I guess they had larger ambitions here. But yeah, I do have questions how Phil Spencer and his leadership team will take over all of this. Maybe we'll see a roundtable like they did with Bethesda a couple of years ago. Obviously, this is going to be much bigger, but I do have questions about what's next for this, for all these franchises. Maybe we'll see Prototype come back, Hexen, King's Quest, Singularity. There's so much dormant IP from Activision, just Activision, that I would love to see. And Blizzard, I think a lot of people would love to see StarCraft. So I do think that I think from an employee perspective at Activision Blizzard, this deal is good for them. But as a whole for this industry, I think a lot of us would rather see all these companies just still existing and being able to make great games. But that's just not a reality here. And that's just the nature of the free market. Now, I do wonder how Sony will react to this. I think I mentioned it earlier, but I do think that they're going to make some moves. Maybe that's Square Enix, maybe that's somebody else, but I do think we're going to see some serious moves the next coming months once this deal is totally finalized. That'll probably come not necessarily just from Sony and Microsoft, but we could see some other players entering into this industry. Very interesting times to come. But what do you make of this historic decision? I truly do think that this is going to have a ripple effect. I think a lot of big moves are now about to happen, kind of like the floodgates being unleashed. That's the best way I can put it. But yeah, what do you guys make of this historic moment and also the other gaming news topics that we talked earlier on in the video? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. But thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video, or if you found any informative value. Consider subscribing for more videos like this, and I'll see you later.